Hey guys, and welcome to FilmGeeks. I'm Michael DeGregorio from CharlotteGeeks.com.
And I'm David Max from FilmGeeks.
All right, well, this week we are going to continue something we started last week.
Hence the same shirts.
That's right. We wanted to stay congruent with everything.
Absolutely.
So, we're working on our top 5 lists, and this week we're going to do the top 5 comic book films.
Definitely. And
if you want to read that as comic book adaptions, you can. However you want to look at it, these are the top 5 comic book films as seen from us, as our personal opinion on
right.
it. So, we're going to talk about things. There's some stuff we agree on, some stuff we don't. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into those as we go along. So let's start out at number 5, Mr. Mackey.
Number 5 for me is going to be Daredevil. Now, I will put a little disclaimer here. The director's cut of Daredevil. Daredevil by itself gets a lot of flack.
Yes.
Already
dissension in the ranks.
Right. It gets a lot of flack. Yeah. But when you tack on I think it's 43 minutes, something like that.
It's a great deal of film. It's not a couple of scenes. It's a whole subplot.
It's a whole other section.
Yeah.
Once you tack that on from a comic book perspective, it completely fixes the movie. Not only does it show what Daredevil does for a living, which is be a lawyer, even though he's blind, but it also explains a lot of the darker parts of the movie that don't get brought up. The normal cut of the movie, or the film cut that was shown in theaters, is very much... It's very rushed, it seems. It seems like they go straight from Bullseye straight to Kingpin, and that's not how it should be.
You didn't have any time to breathe.
It had no time to breathe, exactly. It's very crushed together, and I mean, by no means was it a terrible movie, in my opinion, whereas everybody else is, that movie's terrible. I loved it, and then when they came out with the director's cut, I loved it even more. I love the hero, I love the story, and I love just the director's cut of the movie. So that's my number 5.
Well, it's funny, because just a word about Daredevil. I have said this many times here and on the Charlotte Geeks. I never read comic books. I love comic book movies, so I never read a lot of comic books.
Right.
But so my information is strictly based on the films. Mm-hmm. So I knew nothing about Daredevil going in, but I enjoyed the theatrical cut just for what it was.
Oh, definitely.
But when I saw the director's cut, I was just like, why didn't they release this movie? Mm-hmm. I mean, this was 10 times better to me. I mean, it was just, it clarified a lot of things that didn't make sense in the theatrical cut.
Right.
It brought out a lot of characters, like his partner, I don't know his name, but his Matt Murdock's lawyer friend was just, it's like, okay, this guy exists. He's a real guy in this movie.
Right. He's not just a blip on the radar he was in the theatrical.
He is a lawyer. You actually see him working on cases and in the courtroom actually being a lawyer.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, I don't know why this wasn't the film they released. There's a lot of... I know some of the stories. I'm not going to get into them here, but if you can find it out on the web if you want to know why they cut the film. But yeah, so that's very solid. Number 5. Mm-hmm. So for me, number 5 would be, and I have worked on this list so long that it's hard to get them. I forget what order I've got things in. Okay, my number 5 is Superman the movie from 1978.
Okay, yeah, Christopher Reeve,
Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman, Marlon Brando. This will tell you how long ago this movie was. Margot Kidder. It was the first time Superman had been put on screen. It was the first time a superhero movie had been made for real, by a real director. Mm-hmm. Richard Donner he had directed The Omen right before he did Superman, which you might think, well, I don't see how those would connect, why you would immediately think of him for Superman. But The Omen was a horror movie, but it was a very good, tight horror movie. It was a very well-made movie. And so when they approached Richard Donner to make the movie, he said, I want people to believe a man can fly, and
Yes.
that turned into the marketing campaign for the movie. Like a year before it came out, it was "You'll believe a man can fly," because now you watch the movie and yes, it's a little bit pedestrian, it's a little bit slow in places, and the effects are a little bit we see things a lot different now. Like in Man of Steel, Superman, you're like, wow, this is you really see Superman really be Superman. But when you put it in context of the time, nothing had existed like it before, and it was just here's the word, first use this week, phenomenal. It was a phenomenal film. So my number 5 would be Superman the movie.
Very cool.
All right.
My number 4 is going to be X-Men First Class. And we've talked about X-Men a lot on this show. Our first episode was actually on X-Men Days of Future Past. And we talked a little bit about First Class. But I hadn't actually read the First Class comic before I went to go see the movie. So I went to go see the movie with no preconceived notions other than the fact that, oh, cool, it's another X-Men movie. Sat down in the theater, loved every second of it. The big complaint in the comic book world about First Class is that the directors just took all the different X-Men that they liked and made a movie with them.
That it wasn't the true First Class.
It wasn't a true First Class comic, but you know what? That's okay. For the sake of FilmGeeks, it was awesome. All the different powers, all the different storyline. Kevin Bacon's in the movie. I mean, Kevin Bacon's in the movie. Alongside, amazing cast. Michael Fassbender, Magneto.
Fassbender just classes up everything.
Oh, definitely.
It's amazing.
Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, a young Mystique, very young Mystique.
Very young Jennifer Lawrence. This was pre-Hunger Games.
This was pre-Hunger Games.
So.
I'm trying to think who else was it. I can't remember his name, and I apologize, but Charles.
Oh yes.
We
James
talked about
McAvoy.
James McAvoy.
Is it James McAvoy?
Yeah, definitely. And I had only seen him in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia movie.
Okay.
So seeing him in First Class, I was like, wait a minute, that's Mr. Tumnus. That kind of blew me away. But X-Men First Class was just a phenomenal second use.
Directed by Matthew Vaughn, who had made Kick-Ass.
Yes.
Was, very closely, didn't make this list, but very
That's
close.
Number 6 on my list.
Mine as well.
Maybe we'll have to do an episode just on that. Because, wow, that movie's great. But X-Men First Class blew me out of the water. Blew X3 out of the water.
Yes.
If you want to go as far as saying that.
Yeah, X-Men First Class was definitely a reboot. They call it a soft reboot in the industry, which is like basically you're restarting the franchise without throwing everything out, kind of sort of keeping some of the continuity, but you're really restarting it.
Oh yeah,
fresh, and it did a magnificent job. And I think the fact that we have X-Men Days of Future Past shows you how good of a job they did. They did put the two casts together.
Definitely.
And we actually talked about this before, was that Days of Future Past is a sequel
to First Class. Oh, it's a sequel to First Class, right.
They didn't just throw all this away. So First Class is really, you could go into Days of Future Past and only have seen First Class.
Right, and you're
you
fine.
Can follow it.
Right. So if you're on this episode and you haven't seen our first episode where we did an in-depth discussion on Days of Future Past, go ahead and go back and watch that as well. Once you're done with this one.
Absolutely.
But that's my number 4.
All right. Well, if we're going to stay on the X-Men tip here. On my number 4 would be X-Men 2, X-Men United. Now that jumps back to 2003.
Yes.
And I kind of wavered. I didn't know whether I wanted to put X-Men, the first film, or X-Men 2. I liked X-Men. I didn't know anything about, I say this over and over again, I didn't know anything about the X-Men universe. I just knew from my cousin Brandon, who got a shout out in the last episode, I knew of the X-Men because he read the comic books.
Right.
But I didn't really know a lot. But going into the movie, I thought it did a great job of setting up the world. But the reason I kind of went with X2 is because it is the movie that it really got its feet under it.
Definitely.
they got the origin out of the way.
Right.
And the origin is always the worst and the hardest and the clunkiest thing to get through. You get through the origin. And X2, I thought, is when the movie really just picked up, and it felt like it was a solid, complete adventure, start to finish.
It exploded.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
The action was great. Nightcrawler, who started the episode, the movie off, the Nightcrawler attack on the White House there was more action and more effects to good use in that sequence than the entire first film combined.
And Nightcrawler's dad is actually in First Class, so
really?
Azazel.
Oh, that's right. Okay, Azazel. I didn't know that.
Which was really sad that Azazel didn't make it into Days of Future Past.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, he's kind of dead in Days of Future Past.
Movie's been out 3 months. You have to know this by now.
Yes.
So yeah, X-Men 2, Bryan Singer had done the first one, and then he came back and did X2, and he said himself on the commentary track for X2, he said that for him, the original X-Men was just the first act, that he had to get through X-Men to get to X2.
Right.
And so I think First Class reset the world. Days of Future Past brought it to a new place. But after the debacle that was X3, it had to be reset.
Oh,
but
most
before
definitely.
that, and to really understand how disappointing X3 really was, you have to go back and watch X2 and see what could have been,
what it was
building towards,
right, before X3 happened.
So very solidly in the
X3 is not on our list.
No, it's
by
not.
any means.
So yeah, very solidly number 4 for me is X-Men 2 First Class, or X-Men 2 Days. I'm sorry.
X-Men United.
X-Men United. There it is. There's a lot of different things.
There are a lot of different titles.
Yes.
Correct.
X2 X-Men United.
Right. So. We're already on number 3. My number 3 comic book movie is Watchmen. Watchmen is one that I read in the comic book before I watched the movie. And it was one that I actually bought on Blu-ray before I even bought the comic book and read it. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
It was in the $5 bin at Target.
Wow.
And I was really... I'd heard a lot about it. I'd heard it's really good.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, you know what? I'll pick that up. So I bought it. Came home, bought the comic book the next day, read it, watched the movie. Never before have I seen a comic book movie, or even a book movie, that was just page for page for page, exact content.
Yeah.
And that's how I experienced Watchmen. A lot of people read the book back when it was written in the 80s, and a lot of people kind of read it for... it's kind of weird, but watching it and reading it for myself, it's very dark film, very 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 dark film.
Very much so.
So it's not one for the little kiddos.
It is a hard R rated film.
It's definitely it's extreme on every level.
Yes.
And it's fantastic. But just from watching from reading the comic book, I said I have to see this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I bought it previous day.
Yeah.
So but just the fact that it is page for page content.
Yeah.
And I have the extended edition, so it's I believe it's 3 hours and 15 minutes long, and it throws in the
Dark Freighter.
Right, the Dark Freighter section that was left out in the actual film. Just ties it. It's kind of like the director's cut for Daredevil. It just ties it together even further. And just the characters are fully developed via backstory in Watchmen, because you come in right as one of them dies.
Right.
And you figure out that the plot is the superheroes are being killed.
Yeah.
They're being hunted. And you come in straight at that as one of them is dying. So you find out their backstory via their past, or their origins throughout the film, from them telling stories and them having flashbacks. And the character development is spot on. The characters themselves are spot on. You got Dr. Manhattan, Rorschach, Silk Spectre, Night Owl. and the comedian, and Ozymandias.
Ozymandias, yeah.
All great superhero
Never know
names.
how to say his name.
Ozymandias,
When I look at his name on the page, I never could figure out how to say it.
Yeah. Great character names, great superheroes, the Minutemen as well. And I wish they made more.
Yeah.
But, it was only one book. And then just recently, if you guys are interested in Watchmen, they have Before Watchmen comic books. And I believe...
Is that out now, or is it still coming? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I believe all of it is out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have the first issue of Before Watchmen Rorschach. It's drawn by Lee Bermejo, who's my favorite comic book artist. He does photorealistic art. Okay. And it's... Wow. I wish I'd brought it because wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, go to your local comic book shop, support comic book shops, and pick up a couple issues of Before Watchmen. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, Watchmen it's funny because that's one of the films that I did actually read the comic book before I saw the movie. It's the only one I did because I knew the movie was coming out. It was Zack Snyder,
right,
who had directed 300, which is technically a comic book movie.
Right. I've got 300.
I knew he was making Watchmen, and I knew because I follow the business side of it as well, and I knew that there was so much litigation going on.
Right.
I mean, I think it was 20th Century Fox actually tried to stop the release of the film. Like, there was an injunction against it. Right up until literally like 3 weeks before the movie came out, it was a touch and go issue of whether or not the movie was going to get released.
Whew.
Yeah, it was. It was always going to get released. It was a matter of just how big of a check they had to cut basically to get the movie out. It was kind of depressing that it didn't make more money when it came out, but when you see the movie and you realize how dark it is, you realize it's not a movie for everybody. It really isn't. It really is not a movie for the general audience. It is a deconstruction of the superhero genre.
Yes.
It takes everything that you know about superheroes and kind of turns it on its head and says, well, this is what it would be like in the real world if it really happened. And it is dark, bleak, not a very happy book.
No.
But yet it doesn't have a traditionally happy ending, but it doesn't have a dark ending either. It kind of there's a little bit of a hopeful ending at the end of it, so don't think you're going to go into it as a depressing
it's not a
film.
It's kind of a depressing film, but it does wrap it up nice and clean. It's a nice clean package when you're done with it.
Exactly. So. And I like the world because some of them have superpowers
and some of them don't. Rorschach does not, whereas Dr. Manhattan does.
He doesn't have superpowers, but he walks that line, like what exactly does he have?
Yeah.
It is something. It's definitely worth checking out. Definitely. Okay, on a more traditional comic book scene, for my number 3 is the movie that touched off the current Marvel phase of films, which is Iron Man.
Yes.
2008.
Yes.
Made by Jon Favreau, which is one of my favorite directors, and starring the one and only Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark.
Rebooted his entire film career.
Absolutely. That is a fact. I mean, this guy was, he was a heroin addict.
Yes.
He was a hardcore drug addict.
Drugs.
And, he was famous. He went to jail. Like, he was arrested. He got put in jail. He served time. You think about this now, it's hard to imagine. But, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, he couldn't get a job in a film. He
wasn't the bully in Weird Science anymore.
That's true. He was in Weird Science. I keep forgetting that, even though I did know that before. That was a trivia question long ago. But he couldn't get a job. They couldn't, a company wouldn't bond him. The insurance company wouldn't bond him. But Favreau took a shot on him, and Kevin Feige, the head guy at Marvel,
right,
and they put him in, and he just literally owns that movie.
Oh yeah,
it is.
He is Tony Stark.
He is Tony Stark. He is. It touched off, like I said, the current Marvel dominance of the comic book world, or the superhero world, the movie world.
Right after Incredible Hulk.
Right, yeah. Actually, it did, actually. Well, actually, no, it came out before Incredible Hulk.
Did it really?
Because at the end of the Incredible Hulk,
you're right.
There was a time
Robert Downey Jr.
cameo.
was... Yeah.
Which they shot after Iron Man came out, and they knew it was a hit. So,
right.
So that came out May 4th of 2008. Wow. And, I thought about this because I loved Captain America. I loved The Winter Soldier. I even liked Thor, I like those movies. But for me, Iron Man was the movie that started it all. And to me, it's still the one that holds up. Like, it is a movie that holds up as a movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's got the whole package. It's a fun film, and it's fun. Robert Downey Jr. is so good in the role,
right,
and is such a great character that it's one of those rare movies where you're actually disappointed when he puts on the mask,
right,
puts on the suit, because you're like, oh, no, I don't get to see Robert Downey Jr. anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He is so charismatic in the role,
right,
and so my number 3 is Iron Man.
Moving on to number 2, mine is Batman Begins.
Batman Begins.
Batman Begins. Oh boy, I remember back when we first got Netflix at my house, and that was one of the first ones that I got on Netflix. Okay. Back when they shipped the discs and they didn't have the big streaming service. Got that one in the mail, popped it in the DVD player after school, and was blown away.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, I didn't even know who he was back then. I kind of knew who Christian Bale, yeah, Christian Bale was, and because I'd seen him in the Newsies.
Okay, yeah.
And Henry V.
Wow. Yeah.
And then he's all grown up in this movie. Somewhat. And he's on the ice with Liam Neeson, and they're fighting with samurai swords and the gauntlets, with the blades on the back of them, and Liam Neeson's teaching him how to fight and how to control his fear,
right? And
that was such just a
revelation.
Absolutely blew my mind. And then going from there to fighting Scarecrow, who's one of my favorite Batman villains, and moving on to ultimately fighting Liam Neeson, who plays Ra's al Ghul in the end of the movie. Spoiler alert. But
movie's been out 10 years.
Yeah,
if you haven't seen it by now.
It's a sad day if you haven't seen it.
Exactly.
But
it's funny to me because Batman Begins is such a great movie, and it wasn't until Batman Begins came out, because like last week been a couple of weeks now, I did the Batman anniversary special while you were in Vegas, and I can't believe you missed that.
I know.
The 25th anniversary of...
I was sitting in Excalibur, and I saw a picture that Mike sent me of him in the studio, and a bat symbol was behind him. And I just looked at the phone, and I said, what?
You did the 25th anniversary of Tim Burton's film, and it wasn't until Batman Begins that it really hit me that they had never done a Batman origin story.
Nope.
It's like there's been so many origin stories of everything, from Spider-Man, which is another film that was very good that didn't make this list for me.
I'm with you there. It's like number 7 on
even
mine.
Iron Man, all of them had a origin story.
Right.
Batman never did. He always just showed up. Like in Tim Burton's Batman, he was already Batman.
He's just there. Yeah,
he just showed up. Yeah. So
No problem.
never, you had the flashbacks to his parents getting killed, but you never saw the lost years
him become Batman.
Yeah, and this movie, Batman Begins, really set that up. It really showed the work that went into it. He wasn't. He was a billionaire who bought these great toys.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't the only thing. It was a building of his mind and his body.
Right.
That took years to happen. That Batman Begins really nailed to it, and it had never been done before.
Right.
And I don't think needs to ever be done again.
I hope it doesn't, because it's magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Magic.
Well, I know that's one thing that they have learned with the Man of Steel sequel, Batman vs. Superman. Ben Affleck is playing Batman, and he is been Batman, so we're not going to have an origin story. I guess we're going to assume that Batman origin story and Batman Begins is the one that is told for all time.
And I have a lot to say about Ben Affleck's Batman, and they're good things. They're all good things. I'm very excited to see him, but that will have to be in another episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as we get closer to that film.
So what's your number 2?
My number 2, staying on the Batman tip, is The Dark Knight.
The sequel to
Batman Begins.
Not the true sequel.
No.
That's The Dark Knight Rises, but once again, another episode.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I thought about that. The Dark Knight Rises is more of a direct sequel to Batman Begins.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight came out in 2008. Came out 2 months after Iron Man.
Right.
And it's a film that, well, it's a film. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of comic book movies, and there's a lot of people who, who say that comic book movies are a genre that is kind of its own thing, that is not quite as good as the, a real film.
Right.
But The Dark Knight shut those people up. It is not a happy movie. It's not a joyous film, but it is, from a filmmaker or from a film fan standpoint, it is an exhilarating rush of a movie, because it is like Heat with capes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I mean, it has that feel I've never seen, and the reason why Batman, the movie from 1989, is not on this list is because, for me, that film does not hold up.
No.
Its cultural place is secure because of what it is and where it came from. However, the movie itself does not hold together.
No.
Because you have the Batman versus the Joker.
Right. But
it's only a very, very lightly sketched show.
Right.
It's not a deeply, really... The Dark Knight shows it from a human level. It shows it from the police level on the street. You're seeing this war between Batman and the Joker, this psychopath. You're seeing it from the ground level, from the everyday person's point of view.
Right.
And they're the terror that Joker instills in the city, and how the city literally almost tears itself apart.
Right.
And Batman is trying to hold it together. That has never been done on screen before. It's never been made like that.
Right.
It's never been. It's such the music in that film from Hans Zimmer, the score, the Wally Pfister, who's the director of photography, the shots, the way he frames the film. That was the first superhero movie that was shot partially in IMAX.
Right.
And it was Christopher Nolan.
Because it's Nolan.
Right. Christopher Nolan's total and complete control of the frame in this movie is unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
It is absolutely astonishing. It was a joyous experience when I saw this movie, and it was a movie that when people saw the film, it drew in people that weren't even superhero fans.
Right.
People that weren't into these kinds of movies. People that never went to Iron Man, never went to a Spider-Man movie. They went to The Dark Knight because The Dark Knight surpassed the genre. It surpassed what it was. It became something else. It became a film that could be talked about in the same breath as The Godfather and Heat and movies like that. It was and truly is a masterpiece of filmmaking. I like The Dark Knight Rises, but it never hit the levels of ecstasy that The Dark Knight did.
Yeah.
But that's our number 2.
Right.
So
and our number 1.
Our number 1. If you haven't guessed it by now, you haven't been paying attention.
It is Marvel's The Avengers.
The Avengers, absolutely, that's correct. Yeah, I know certain people that are friends of mine are going to, because I've had this discussion before, and they're like, why didn't you pick The Dark Knight as the number 1? I said, well, first of all, I think The Dark Knight is the number 1 superhero movie. The Avengers is the number 1 comic book movie.
Yes.
It's got that light, bright, multicolored, just happy.
Right.
You're a kid seeing this on the big screen.
Yeah.
That, first of all, The Dark Knight don't need to be seen by kids under the age of 12.
No.
It really doesn't. This movie,
not.
and I didn't even talk about the Joker, but just as a pure filmmaking, that doesn't. It's an adult movie.
Right.
The Avengers is a movie for the family. It's a movie for everybody.
It turns adults into 4-year-olds.
It does. It literally does.
Joss Whedon has a knack for doing that.
Yes, he does.
Joss Whedon wrote and directed The Avengers, and in my opinion, he created the perfect amalgamation of that's a fun word, of just superheroes. You know, you've got Thor, you've got Hulk, you've got Iron Man, you've got Black Widow, you've got, who am I missing here? Hawkeye. Is that all of them? Captain America. That's
the first Avenger.
How could I miss Steve Rogers? Good old Cap. But yeah, the first Avenger. The first Avenger.
And Whedon was given the gift of being freed from origins.
Yes.
He didn't have to set up. All they'd already been set up. All the characters had been set up, and so all he had to do was what he does best,
right?
Which is balancing an ensemble cast.
Definitely, it was perfect.
It was. Everybody got their moments to shine. There was nobody left, unless some people say Hawkeye was kind of left out, but there's not that much he can do.
I've heard he's got a big role in Avengers 2. So,
and based on he has a big role in Avengers 2, also knowing how Whedon has a tendency to kill people.
Yes.
I would put money on him not living through the credits of this one.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
I don't know anything. I haven't read any of the advanced scripts. There's spoiler scripts supposedly out there in the world now, but I have no interest in that. I'm just based on what I know about Joss Whedon.
Right.
But he does something. Everybody has. Let's be honest. You got guys like Robert Downey Jr. who has a giant ego. He has to. You can't be somebody like that. He is a living human Tony Stark now.
Right.
But he talks about working with Whedon in the movie. He said it was just a great experience.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful. It was like having a director who was like another Avenger. He was there with them. He wrote lines on the fly to give them, and he working from his years as Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Firefly, he knows how to do ensemble pieces.
Yes.
And that's what you need. That was the question that everybody asked. Why is Joss Whedon doing the Avengers?
Because Joss Whedon's awesome.
And for me, it was like as soon as I knew he was doing it, I was like, well, that's it. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, you don't have to worry about it now. It's going to be fine because he knows how to do these movies. Everybody gets their moment in the sun. Everybody gets their moment to shine. The people just standing around talking is exciting.
Yeah.
On the bridge of the helicarrier, when they're all just standing around talking, that is an electric moment.
Yeah.
That could have been a boring, stagnant exposition dump, turns into a lightning fast.
Right. It was a
fun moment. It's a live
Definitely.
wire. That's
how
what
does
Fury
does. See all this?
Exactly. Yeah. Tony Stark walks on the bridge, and it's like it's just like if they never went anywhere and if they never did any action,
right?
I would just like to see these people stand around and talk.
Just talk, yeah.
Because he does something in this movie by the end of the movie that a lot of directors today, a lot of filmmakers today seem to get away from.
Right.
Which is these guys like each other. They respect each other. They enjoy being together. And that creates a level in the audience that you want to be with them.
Right.
Because it's not all tension. There is some of that. There is some sparks that fly when they first meet, but they do respect each other. They do like each other, and that we can feel that in the audience. That's why we want to spend time with these guys.
Right.
And they are all great at what they do, and they're also just friends.
Right.
And Whedon captures that perfectly.
Most definitely.
And he captures it, to me, better than anybody ever has in any of these films.
Oh, yeah.
That's why The Avengers is the #1 film on our list.
#1.
Now, you may differ with that. You may have a different #1, a different #5.
Right.
You may have a completely different list. And if that is the truth, if you don't agree with our thoughts, let us know what you think. Let us know what your list is. Let us know if we forgot something, if there's a glaring absence from this script.
Definitely.
And you can find where to contact us in the comments below under here. Leave us a comment here. Find us at on Facebook. Find us at FilmGeeks384. At Twitter at FilmGeeks384.
Definitely.
Here at the website, go to YouTube, sign up, subscribe to the site.
Definitely.
And give us some feedback. Now, before we go, we'd like to do a shout out to Scott Clark Toyota.
Yeah.
As always, for letting us shoot here in their magical studio.
Yes. You can find them at 13,000 East Independence Boulevard, or online at www.scottclarktoyota.com.
Absolutely. They have thousands of vehicles in stock, and remember, they have lifetime warranties on all new vehicles and some limited pre-owned vehicles as well.
Correct.
So
absolutely.
give them a call at 704-535-1972 and tell them that the Film Geek sent you.
We'll catch you all next time.
Absolutely. We'll
right
see
here
you next time
on the Film Geeks podcast.